we're going to get into it. We're going to go over the Morning Joe appearance. We're going to go over the disastrous press conference that just happened. We're also going to be going over his polling numbers and the letter he wrote to Congress. And it's, yeah. Stardust Bun, maybe, yeah, I'll click on that.
This is a song.
No, thank you. We're not going to watch it right now, though. It ain't looking good, folks. No, it's looking quite bad, actually. Let's get into it. So, polling came out of Emerson. Now, for those of you who don't follow a lot of, like, politics, Emerson is, like, the one of the gold standard orgs for doing polling. It polled the swing states, folks. And the closest of them, the one in which Biden does the best, is in Michigan, where Biden is polling at 44%. Trump wins every single one of those states, though, because in Michigan, he's polling at 45%. In Wisconsin, Biden is down 3 points. Arizona, he's down 4 points. Georgia, he's down 5 points. Pennsylvania, he's down 5 points. And in Nevada, he's down 6 points. He's not reining it back in, is kind of the issue here. Yeah. There hasn't been like this rebound of people like forgetting. It's looking bad. He could take Michigan and Wisconsin. Sure. I think none of these numbers are like, you know, something he can't accomplish. The issue is he won't be able to accomplish them if the current public perception of him is locked in stone. And I think we're pretty close to like the solidification of his public perception. You know, like that's we're like right there, guys. This is this is bad. Usually if it was an issue that like people would forget about, his polling would rebound. We're not seeing that happen. We're not seeing that happen in any of these swing states. So, yeah, it's the polling itself looks bad. And on top of that, here is a 40-second clip from Morning Joe. And I think, well, I think it will probably tell us everything we need to know right here.
Nobody said anything except me and the folks out there in the local, race. He said, I did nothing to stop Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In fact, he said, I think I encouraged Russia from going, I think he encouraged Russia going in. I mean, I'm reading from a list of lies. First of all, he was made up quotes, suckers and losers. I was with it. He called the Americans in the cemeteries from World War I suckers and losers. And so this guy's going to have to start to answer for what he did. I'm not letting... Nobody said...
So... yeah, Hoot Wheels, it is really... he's struggling so hard, man. I mean, like, let's check out the full Morning Joe Biden. Does Morning Joe have like a specific YouTube channel?
I've been doing this.
No, it's just on MSNBC, I guess. Thanks, YouTube channel.
Now for something.
Okay, do we have the timestamp where the president comes on? I feel like someone in the comments has to be doing the timestamps for the president, right? Right? You have the link? Please drop it, by all means, because right now I'm looking at like an hour plus long live stream. Here we go. There we go.
Now for something a little different, and from inside the White House, we have a special guest joining us now, the 46th President of the United States and presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden, calling in to Morning Joe right now. Good morning, sir.
Hey, Mika, I'm more than presumption. I'm going to be the Democratic nominee.
There you go.
Okay, well, Mr. President, that leads to the letter that we just received a few minutes ago. And I'm curious, there's a part of it where you...
What? I think he said there's no I think he said there's no presumptive about it. I'm going to be the nominee. Like, I think that's what he said, but it was legitimately hard to decode. Hey, Hoot Wheels, thanks for jumping over to the Riverboat site. I always appreciate when people do that.
You talk about the fact that you got four...
Yeah, the phone audio is absolutely doing him dirty too. Like, he's hard to understand under ideal audio circumstances. Do you get faux periods on HRT? It depends on what you mean. If you mean bleeding, no. If you mean, like, you know, hormonal mood swings, yeah, sometimes.
14 million votes, 87% of the vote. It was an open process.
But also, you should be aware that the process of your body acclimating to HRT after just starting it is going to put you on a bit of an emotional roller coaster.
You had 3 people running against you. You have 3,900 delegates. And then you ask this question, do we now just say the process didn't matter, that the voters didn't have a say? I'm curious, is that an allusion also to Donald Trump and the fact that Democrats, you believe, may now be doing the same thing that Donald Trump tried to do in 2020, and that is overthrow the popular will of Democratic voters?
Well, look, Joe, let me say it this way. The reason I've been out on the road so much all over the country, and while Trump is riding around in a golf cart, filling out his golf cart before he even hits the ball. But anyway, he hadn't been anywhere in 10 days. I've been all over the country, number one. And I've gone over the country for several reasons. One, to make sure my instinct was right about the party still wanting me to be the nominee. And all the data shows that.
No, but nah, I've looked at the data. All the data does not show that.
The average Democrat out there who voted, the 14 million of them that voted for me, still want me to be the nominee, number one. Number two, the idea that Donald Trump has gained in any substantial way, has his argument to why he should be president is anywhere convincing than it was 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago. It's just not there. And we're just starting to focus on Trump. And look, I attended services, spoke to over 600 people at Mount Airy Church of God in Christ in Philly. I stopped by campaign field offices with John Fetterman and Madeline Dean, both.
Okay, so he seems to be doing pretty okay here. One of the main issues I have with this, though, is some of this is sounding pretty read off a teleprompter. And like, or read off of note cards, you know, like this is, and it's hard to tell because he's, you know, on the phone, but, not gonna lie, this isn't instilling a lot of faith in me. This just gives me the vibes of Trump calling into Fox News and Friends. Well, yeah, no. Gamer Girl, ooh, that's exactly what this is. Morning Joe is basically Joe Biden's version of Fox and Friends, but I I think it takes on a bit new meaning underneath the current like PR crisis he has.
Strongly supporting me. The president and the first lady, we spoke at a campaign ice cream social for APSME, Council 13 in Harrisburg. 40 minutes after we spoke with supporters, stopped by Denim Coffee. I mean, I was with the governor of Pennsylvania, who's still strongly supporting me. I mean, so look, and the fact is that this week I'm going to be hosting NATO Summit here in D.C., going to hold a press conference on Thursday. On Wednesday, I met with the National Union leaders of the AFL-CIO. On Friday, I traveled to Detroit, Michigan for a campaign event.
They look like they are... These people are big supporters of Joe Biden. They look like they're visiting like a friend who's on their deathbed. Like this is... Maybe I'm reading too much into their expressions, but they do not seem happy with how this is going.
They're just on down the line. And so I'm not getting any of what I was told. I wanted to make sure I was right, that the average voter out there still wanted Joe Biden.
At what point will they deem him unfit?
They do. And I'm confident, and like I said, the press...
I have to be honest, I don't think the Democrats have the spine to publicly invoke the 25th Amendment. But I think they are trying everything they can behind closed doors to get him out.
With me,
the polling's just that bad.
Fairly fair. I haven't read any reporting they did today, but the fact is that I think they have to acknowledge we had large crowds, enthusiastic crowds, and and now they're talking about whether I use a prompter. Well, I did it all extemporaneously. The fact of the matter is, I was using prompters too. I don't get that, but at any rate, the bottom line here is that we're not going anywhere. I am not going anywhere. I wouldn't be running if I didn't absolutely believe that I am the best candidate to beat Donald Trump in 2024. We had a Democratic nominating process for the voters spoke clearly. I won 14 million of those votes, et cetera. So I just I not only believe that from the beginning,
I hope he
but I
drops
wanted
out.
to reassert it and demonstrate that it's true. And I'm going to be doing that all through this week and from here on.
So we noted yesterday there was quite a contrast to the people that were supporting you yesterday compared to, say, a lot of the Washington insiders and Hollywood moguls, and go down the list of very powerful people that want you out compared to the support that you had in Pennsylvania yesterday. That said, there are a lot of people of goodwill who love you, who believe you did a great job in your first term, who are still concerned. Yesterday,
a lot of people like us.
The topic came up
Paradigm
of
shift.
the
Thank you very much for the
Stephanopoulos
raid.
interview, where
Welcome.
you were asked the question,
Hey, Globus the Elder.
how would you feel if Donald Trump beat you? How would you feel after you lost? And you said, well, as long as I did the best I could do, that's the most important thing. That's caused Democrats concern, who believe that losing is not an option. What would you say to those who are concerned by that answer?
It's not an option, and I've not lost. I haven't lost. I beat him last time. I'll beat him this time. And this is a guy who, look, we talk about debates. Look at his performance at debates. He lied over, Trump has 50 lies. I mean, look, this is a guy who says 10% of the universe. Yeah, I want to get into it. He's just a liar. And he hasn't done a damn thing since the debate. He's been riding around in a golf cart for 10 days, was down in Mar-a-Lago talking with his wealthy friend. I'm not running because of these guys, Joe. I'm running because, and you know me well enough to know this from the very beginning, I ran because I never bought on to the trickle-down economic theory. I never bought into the notion that...
I genuinely don't know that that's true. That this was Trump talking, and yeah, no, exactly, Bear Trick Rex. Like you can clip his stutter and it makes him sound bad. But the issue in these appearances aren't due to his stutter.
we have to walk away from the rest of the world and cave to Putin or anybody else. I've never believed any of that. And I'm confident that's what the American people are. So what I did was I went out and I wanted to make sure that there wasn't any slippage at all. And with the average voter, I don't care what the millionaires think. And by the way, 97% of all the people who contribute to us people make it under 200, contribute under $200. I think we have the largest contingent ever in history. I'm not positive of that, but I think that's true. And so I want their support, but that's not the reason I'm running. I'm not running about what they think and what they care about. And by the way, you don't see a whole hell of a lot of them flocking to Trump. You don't see a whole lot of CEOs flocking to Trump. You don't see any. You see the major economists.
This is a bad look. This is. I think he is not taking the questions about his fitness well at all. He's he's trying to frame it as both like a personal choice and as if he has the mandate of the masses, and it's just like it's so messy and incoherent. It's so messy and incoherent. The rhetoric is messy and the appearance is messy. This is not allaying anybody's fears.
Out there talking about what I have been able to do. I don't hear anybody talking about his economic plan likely to bring America around and keep America first. And by the way, here's Trump talking about all that he's done and Trump and his debate night. He's a pathological liar. He lied about Roe. He refused to accept the outcome of the election. He refused to condemn January 6th, and he says, they claim, he spoke with Putin before he invaded. What the hell are we doing, Joe? What are we doing?
Twin drills? Yep.
This is bizarre.
Yeah.
It's a good question. I have a few questions, Mr. President, and I know you know where I stand. And yet, I have a few questions. First, it's very simple. How can you assure the American people that you won't have another night like the one you did in Atlanta?
Look at my career. I've not had many of those nights. It was a terrible night, and I really regret it happened. But the fact of the matter is, how can you assure you're going to be on faith that can intervene on your way to go to, work tomorrow? Age wasn't, the idea I'm too old. Created over 15 million jobs, 21 million insured for the ACA, beat Big Pharma, relieved student debts for 5 million people, first black woman in the court. So I think I had a significant run, and that's how I'd measure me. Measure me what I've done. And by the way, in terms of my neurological capacity, I had a physical, a neurological physical as well in February. It's released. I released all my records, all of them. And I have a neurological test every single day. Try sitting behind this desk and making these decisions. You know it. Both of you know it. They know it.
So, to be fair to Biden, I don't think the ramble is really an issue. Mostly because he's rambling specifically to cram as many, campaign talking points into this appearance as he can. And I have to be honest, he's speaking clearly. I don't think this is moving the needle back, towards whence it came. It's not undoing much of the damage done by that debate.
I'm not bad at what I do. And now, it doesn't mean I never make a mistake. I do. But I'm making those decisions.
Mr. President, if anybody in my family had a night like that, like if my Joe had a night like that, or my kids or anybody, I'd probably want to do some sort of workup and medical workup and make sure he's okay. Have you been tested for any age-related illnesses, pre-Parkinson's, or anything like that that might explain sort of having a night like that where you couldn't finish sentences?
So just as a little bit of background, and probably why she mentioned specifically pre-Parkinson's, is a news story dropped last night about a neurologist who specializes in Parkinson's visiting the White House and consulting with Biden's doctor 8 times between last August and now. So that's why she's asking about the pre-Parkinson's.
Look, I was feeling so badly before the debate. When I came back, they tested me for, I thought maybe I had COVID, maybe there was something wrong, I had an infection or something. They tested me, they gave me those tests, I was clear. So, but look, I had a bad night. But the fact of the matter is, look at what I'm doing. I mean, let me put it this way. If there was something that was wrong that night, it's not like it comes and that's one night and it goes away. That's why I've been out. I've been testing myself, been testing everywhere I go, going out and making the case. The night of that debate, I went out. I was out till 2 o'clock in the morning that very night. That very night, it drives me nuts, people talking about this. That very night, I'm talking to large crowds. Look at the crowds we've gathered everywhere from Atlanta to North Carolina to Pennsylvania, and look at the enthusiasm. But it was right after. And where the hell's Trump been? What has Trump said or done except deny and lie about what he's for?
Okay, so you have repeatedly said that all of these people and entities are wrong. And let me go through them. The New York Times editorial board, The Economist, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the Boston Globe, Jerry Nadler, Seth Moulton. Let me go to Julian Castro, Tim Ryan, David Axelrod, David Remnick, Richard Haas. Yeah, I know which one you're responding to there. Zeke Emanuel, but they're saying that you should step aside. So what is your plan of attack moving forward?
Well, to be fair to this assessment, just like going through it a bit, it doesn't involve a mental health screening. I don't know, it's not included in here.
Pretty big names.
To go out and keep doing their big names, but I don't care what those big names think. They were wrong in 2020. They're wrong in 2022 about the red wave. They're wrong in 2024. And come out with me. Watch people react. You make a judgment. You make a judgment. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I'm going to have all these foreign leaders here. I've been in contact with the new British Prime Minister, anyway. Look, the country, the rest of the world is looking, our allies are looking for U.S. leadership. Who else do you think could step in here and do this? I expanded NATO. I solidified NATO. Ask your brother about it in Poland. I made sure that we're in a position where we have a coalition of people, of the nations around the world to deal with China, with Russia, with everything that's going on in the world. We're making real progress. The Biden plan, which got in Israel for the Gaza Strip, is something that was adopted by.
Have a sub friend.
Netanyahu.
Awooga.
Awooga. Thank you for gifting Mixed Rainbow Goth a sub. That's very kind of you. And also, part of the issue is when he says you be the judge, he's losing the PR war right now. It is a campaign failing that this has been the dominant narrative for the last week.
UN Security Council, whether it comes to fruition, it's
hey,
all
Gamer G, how you doing?
G7's but look, I'm not going to explain any more about what I should or shouldn't do. I am running. Mm-hmm. And if you want to stop me,
I wanted to ask you, it's so interesting. You talked about how, you were supposed to lose in 2020. You won. There's supposed to be a huge wave in 2022. There wasn't. In 2023, Republicans were supposed to win. They didn't. You could say the same thing about France. Le Pen was supposed to win in 2 years ago. She ended up getting crushed. Her party, her far-right nationalist extreme party was supposed to win yesterday. They ended up getting crushed. I'm curious, what message do you take from the French elections and the British elections? Because we keep hearing about the rise of far-right nationalist extremism in Europe. But I've got to say, it looks like this past week has been the worst week for far-right nationalists between Britain and France. I'm wondering what you say about that and what message you take to NATO allies this week.
Look, Joe, let's get something clear about 20 and 24. Not only were they wrong, I said they were wrong beforehand. I said we were going to win and how we're going to win. I didn't pretend about it. It wasn't like, oh my God, I was surprised. I was not surprised. I predicted it. I knew what we were doing. Number one. Number two, you may remember, I was one of the few people out there publicly saying before the 2022 election, there will be no red wave. There will be no red wave. Because I've been all over the country. I didn't believe it at all. And then in 2023, the key elections, I went into those races. Not every one of them, but a lot of them. And I said we were going to win. Look, we won those. So, Joe, it wasn't just that it didn't happen. I was predicting beforehand it would not happen. Because I've got a pretty good political instinct and eye. And here's the deal. It's not going to happen here this time around. The American public is not going to move away from me as an average voter. And again, I'm here for two reasons, pal. One, to rebuild the economy for hardworking middle-class people, give everybody a shot. Just a straight...
I think that the public is moving away from him. That's part of the problem. That's why the donors and like the most milquetoast libs in elected office are freaking out.
Shot. Everybody gets a fair chance. Number one. Number two, remember all this talk about how I don't have the black support? Come on, give me a break. Come with me. Watch.
Joe Biden, why couldn't you have reiterated one of your all-time bangers? They say I don't have the African American community's support. Well, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. He just pulls it out again. Incredible.
I'm getting so frustrated by the
would have been a top 10 moment. I wonder if a black woman would have more black support. Yeah, and it's it's a curious question. Would is Joe Biden a better draw for the African American community? I don't think so, dude. You opposed integrated busing. You you wrote the 1994 crime bill. Like, no, man.
No, I'm not talking about you guys, but about the elite
Hey, Feisty
in the party, who they know so much more. But if any of these guys don't think I should run against me, go ahead, announce for president. Challenge me at the convention.
I'm not curious as to why he's mad. I understand why he's mad. It's mostly just that, like, he needs better responses. Like, frankly, if I'm being completely honest, he can't afford to have natural, normal human emotions in public like this because it's fucking over his campaign. Like, he's getting mad. It's a bad look. It's not going to go over well.
If the polls are wrong in France, they're also right.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no right wave or tide here in America either. By the way, in case you're wondering whether there is one, have you ever seen Trump run away so fast from what he's for? You know he's going to do it anyway, but he's such a liar. This guy everybody knows what they're planning to do. And now he's saying, no. This guy is going to rip away at a woman's right to choose in a permanent way. This guy is going to make sure that he exacts revenge. This guy's going to destroy democracy. This guy's going to give a blank check to the Supreme Court, and he's going to use it to pass the 2025 agenda.
The issue is, man, if he performs like he did, like if he stays the candidate and he performs poorly in the next debate, it's my stomach will just drop through to the center of the earth because we're so cooked if that happens, dog. Does he genuinely think he sounds good and passionate here instead of just a ranting old man? I believe that is what he believes, yeah.
This guy's extremely dangerous. But you notice he doesn't speak up for what he really is for. He's all of a sudden realizing, oh my God, nobody's for what I'm for. But anyway, look, and again, think of the things he lied about. He talked about he gave the largest tax cut in history. Yeah, he gave the largest tax cut in history to millionaires and billionaires. So he said that he's going to, those 10% universal tax proposal is not going to drive prices higher. Every major economist in the world is saying.
I think he's doing a good job in this interview, by the way, like projecting his voice, talking, putting a little passion out there, but he needs to have like 12 more of these in a row, you know? This is just like the first step of the tightrope, but I gotta admit, it is pretty weird how he sidestepped the Parkinson's question.
It's going to drive an average $2,500 per person. Only jobs we created for illegal immigrants.
I think that overall this
job and bounce.
I think that overall this is. Earlier I said it's not moving the needle, but I think it like watching this improves your perception of Biden a bit, just not that much, you know.
Back from COVID. Give me a break. That's what he said at the convention.
He's doing a good job on the attack.
Debate. Everything he said. He said, he largely fixed COVID. You kidding me? And what happened? Nobody said anything. Nobody said anything except me and the folks out there in the local, race. He said, I did nothing to stop Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In fact, he said, I think I encouraged Russia from going. I think he encouraged Russia going in. I'm reading from the list of lies. First of all, he was made up quotes, suckers and losers. I was with it. He called the Americans in the cemeteries from World War I suckers and losers. And so this guy's going to have to start to answer for what he did. I'm not letting up, Joe.
Is that the crinkling of a page script? Nah, it couldn't be. It was probably one of their papers on like one of their desks, right?
Russia from going. I think he encouraged Russia going in. I'm reading from the list of lies. First of all, he was made up quotes, suckers and losers. I was with it. He called the Americans in the cemeteries from World War I. I was with it. He called the Americans.
Oh yeah, that does sound like a page turn. Again, we're micro-analyzing this, so like again, take our observations with grains of salt, but like that was paper.
In the cemeteries from World War I, suckers and losers. And so this guy's going to have to start to answer for what he did. I'm not letting up, Joe. I am not letting up a little bit. And by the way, France registered, look, you talk about Europe. France rejected extremism. Democrats will reject it here as well. Trump, and, this is a guy who is an extreme candidate. I can't think of a candidate in my lifetime that's been more extreme. He makes George Wallace look like a patriot.
President Joe Biden,
I think he did pretty well. I think they need to coach him to be a little bit more punchy with his answers. Yeah, Troy, I agree. The perception of this is Like if I was analyzing this under normal circumstances, I'd be like, that was okay. Currently, I'm like, well, he did speak okay. He did speak okay, and I only didn't catch like 20% of what he said. But yeah, I'm not confident at all in his performances. It's not reversing my impression, I guess. I'm back to saying this is a wash. Biden's ramblings are 10 times better than Trump's ramblings. Sure, because he's saying things that are true at least. But I don't think that's enough. Frankly, I'm sorry. Oh God. But it doesn't end there, folks, because of course it doesn't. We have to talk. Where did I put it? Where is? I guess I didn't prep this. My bad. Give me 1 minute. Okay. So Joe Biden rumbled my phone. No, it's not Joe Biden. I'm kidding. But Joe Biden wrote a letter to Congress. Or rather, he wrote a letter to select congressional Democrats, I should say. That letter has now been leaked, and it really does make one wonder, why is he communicating via letter? This seems weird. So let's take a look here. July 8th, 2024. Fellow Democrats, now that you've returned from the July 4th recess, I want you to know that despite all the speculation in the press and elsewhere, I am firmly committed to staying in this race, to running this race to the end, and to beating Donald Trump. I have had extensive conversations with the leadership of the party, elected officials, rank-and-file members, and most importantly, Democratic voters over the past 10 days or so. I've heard the concerns that people have, their good faith fears and worries, about what is at stake in this election. I'm not blind to them, believe me. I know better than anyone the responsibility and the burden the nominee of our party carries. I carried it in 2020 when the fate of our nation was at stake. I know these concerns come from a place of real respect for my lifetime of public service and my record as president, and I've been moved by the expressions of affection for me, so many who have known me well and supported me over the course of my public life. I've been grateful for the rock-solid, steadfast support from so many elected Democrats in Congress and all across the country, and taken great strength from the resolve and determination I've seen from so many voters and grassroots supporters, even in the hardest of weeks. I can respond to all this by saying clearly and unequivocally, I wouldn't be running again if I did not absolutely believe I was the best person to beat Donald Trump in 2024. I don't know where this belief is coming from, but, okay. We had a democratic nomination process, and the voters have spoken clearly and decisively. Oh yeah, it's not like the DNC shut down multiple primaries or anything. It's not like that happened. It's not like there were no other people running against you because you were the presumptive nominee. But, this was a process open to anyone who wanted to run. Only 3 people chose to challenge me. One fared so badly he left the primaries to run as an independent. Another attacked me for being too old and was soundly defeated. The voters of the Democratic Party have voted. They've chosen me to be the nominee of the party. Do we now just say this process doesn't matter? That the voters don't have a say? I decline to do that. I feel a deep obligation to the faith and the trust the voters of the Democratic Party have placed in me to run this year. It was their decision to make, not the press, not the pundits, not the big donors, not any selected group of individuals, no matter how well intentioned. The voters and the voters alone decide the nominee of the Democratic Party. How can we stand for democracy in our nation if we ignore it in our own party? I cannot do that. I will not do that. Again, it kind of flies in the face of your statements that you shut down multiple states' primaries, but okay. I have no doubt that I and we can and will beat Donald Trump. We have a historic record of success to run it, from creating over 15 million new jobs. Uncle Tony, thank you for the $5
Hey kids,
dono.
it's y'all, Uncle Tony. Just remember to stay hydrated and stay cool out there. And stay safe if you live in an area prone to wildfires. Just had one near me recently.
Well, I'm glad you're staying safe, Uncle Tony. And Batty, yes, another stream. Stream for the stream gods. Wait, stream for the content gods. There we go. Okay, yeah, touting a bunch of wins for the administration, etc., etc. And we have the second page here. That's whose side Trump and the MAGA Republicans are on. Trump and the MAGA Republicans want another $5 trillion in tax cuts for rich people so they can cut Social Security and Medicare. We will never let that happen. It's trickle-down economics on steroids. We know the way to build the economy is from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down. We're going to make the rich, big corporations pay their fair share of taxes in this country. The MAGA party is also still determined to repeal the Affordable Care Act, which could throw 45 million Americans off their coverage. We will never let that happen either. Trump got rich denying housing to black people. We have a plan to build 2 million new housing units in America, etc., etc. Yeah, a lot of this does very little to address the primary concerns. It feels like very much a nuh-uh kind of response to the central question being asked. Let's see. The question of how to move forward has been well aired for over a week now. It's time for it to end. We have one job, and that is to beat Donald Trump. We have 42 days to the Democratic Convention and 119 days to the general election. Any weakening of resolve or lack of clarity about the task ahead only helps Trump and hurts us. It's time to come together, move forward as a united party, and defeat Donald Trump. Now, the issue I have with this is that while it's well written, this doesn't allay, like, if I'm a sitting Democratic congressman, okay, this does not allay my fears because the president isn't even coming to talk to me personally about it, or even to a room of us personally. He's writing a letter. Like, anyone on his staff could have written that. And I gotta be honest, when I see this, what I see is essentially the Jenny Nicholson tweet. The Jenny Nicholson tweet, by the way, is... Let's see, can I pull it up here? Yeah. The tweet where she says, "You know that thing where you disagree with a guy online and suddenly his vocab switches from completely normal to writing missives from the Revolutionary War in a quill pen, as though that's going to give him some kind of intellectual high ground." I think that's basically this. I think Biden is pulling of that. Unfortunately. And also, just the response to this letter being published. I mean, you got accounts like End Wokeness here posting, "Don't give up, Joe. Fight on. It's just a stutter. You're the sharpest man ever." Like, it's not a good look when your political enemies are championing your cause of staying in the race. This is, in fact, a bad look.
So you ask Biden, will you feel guilty if you lose, right? Like if you stay in too long and then you lose to Trump, your legacy is that you turn the presidency back over to the guy you say is a threat to democracy. Are you going to feel guilty at all? Biden's like, what is guilt? What? I don't know. No.
And if you stay in and Trump is elected and everything you're warning about comes to pass, how will you feel in January?
I feel as long as I gave it my all.
Generally scared like Biden don't seem to realize
Hey,
he
my
will be
rear
harmed
end.
if he loses.
If you can't slow your roll, you're gonna have to have a temp ban. Okay? I'm just letting you know. Like, the hysterical and hostile reaction you're having is like okay in the privacy of your own home. Spreading it online is getting old fast. Generally scared like Biden doesn't seem to realize who will be harmed if he loses. Well, yeah, of course. He's insulated from the outcome either way. Story the Bard. Thank you for the $5 dono.
I can do. That's what this is about.
This interview is 22 minutes long, by the way. It was not an hour because Joe Biden is not capable of going an hour. CNN reported that after the interview, Team Biden thought he did amazing.
Biden is big mad.
Biden is big mad. I would also be big mad.
But of course they're going to say that, because what are they going to say? That he did horribly? So here is CNN report.
The issue is that he's allowed to be big mad. It's just that for the purposes of his campaign, being big mad in big public is big trouble.
On the Biden team's reaction.
The Biden campaign thinks that the interview last night did exactly what they wanted it to do. And in their thinking, they think that it showed a president who could respond to these questions, do so in an articulate fashion, and really push back against the concerns about his cognitive health. So they're looking at this as a win, seeing it as a strong interview. And really what the president was doing in that interview was showing defiance, dismissing the concerns and the critics about his candidacy.
I mean, it's not about whether or not he has the right to feel big mad. It's just that, like, that's the human reaction, you know? It's the human reaction to being told you're too old to do something. Like, you know, it's the uncomfortable conversation, like, older folks have with their parents about driving the car. A lot of senior citizens get big mad about that.
Okay, there's only one problem. No one actually believes that. Now listen, as a person who wants Donald Trump to win the presidency, I wish that the entire Democratic Party bought into this narrative. I wish they bought into the narrative that Joe Biden were doing just fine. Let me tell you, at my synagogue, right, which is filled with Orthodox Jews who all think that Joe Biden is a terrible president, my synagogue is going to vote 105% for Donald Trump. I can tell you that there is a prayer that we do every week for the government of the United States in the middle of Shachri, which is the morning prayer. Okay, and that prayer involves a prayer for the health of the President of the United States. Never has that prayer been said with more fervor than in my synagogue this weekend. Because everybody who wants Trump to win is like, I hope that this guy lasts. Like, truly, he's an awful candidate. I hope he sticks around.
Again, take Ben Shapiro's word, as always, with, like, all of the salt. But, I don't know. I think maybe this is, unfortunately, a true thing. A lot of conservatives really are salivating at putting Trump up against Biden. We are friends with Hannah Reloaded, right? Yeah. Also, that's like the most cynical and completely scumbag backhanded offering ever. Right? We're praying for the health of the president, that the country is good or stable, but because we want him to lose really badly to a fat, philandering douchebag? Well, yeah, of course. Hey, John Bainbridge. So they only care about Biden staying in to lose, very religious of them. Yeah. Well, they want Biden to lose. What's Shapiro mad about now? He's not mad. He's mad about Democrats wanting not Joe Biden in the race. Essentially. Hello, Windows Defender. Did you see the newly released court paperwork about Trump and Epstein and how he, yes, I have seen that. And we talked about it briefly, but not in great detail. I think this is correct. There we go. Experimenting with new chat commands today. Haven't had to break that one out before. Anyway, I think it's a bad thing when some of the most evil people in the conservosphere are championing Joe Biden as president specifically because they think he's feeble, old, and dull-witted. Like, that's a bad sign. The GOP is certainly going to do whatever they're going to do because they're the opposite side and they want to win an election. I'm sure they're ginning up the whole DEI candidate argument. Oh yeah, they. For those of you who are unaware, the New York Post has already run a trial attack against Kamala Harris, calling her the DEI candidate. And guys, it's just the more socially appropriate way of calling her the N-word. Like let's call a spade here, okay? They're already just creating the most like racist attack ads of all time against Kamala Harris. Yeah, it's not good. But I think they're kind of trialing those because they don't know what will work if Harris does run. I think it upends a lot of conservative plans. Emma Vigeland said the same thing. Yeah, I mean Emma's when she's right, she's right. Let's see. Just wanted to say hi. I like your stream. I'm a transgender female. I'm getting married tomorrow. Congratulations, Jamie Lynn. I'm so glad that you get to marry the love of your life. I'm sorry that it's all sorts of stressful, though. Sorry. Now the GOP has plans for Harris, like I said. You can try, but I'm pretty sure the mechanism to actually try and challenge her candidacy in court. She's running as the vice president. It's pretty straightforward to me. If Biden pulls out, like that would just put her in the driver's seat. I feel like Kamala Harris supporters are the Swifties of politics. Oh yeah, they've been biding their time, okay? Hey, Imcon. You're assuming a running mate can legally take over? I mean, I guess I am assuming that. I assumed that there would be legal mechanisms for all of that, especially considering, like, we're not really in that kind of territory. I don't think there's any serious opposition to her candidacy. I don't think there's any legal reason she wouldn't be able to run. They can certainly try and challenge it in the courts, but I don't think it would stick. I'm too doomer pilled right now when it comes to this election. Fair. The doomer prone election. Now, let's just take a look at the polling. I think this segment from CNN is pretty decent.
I just want to point out where the polls are now, where they were at this point back in 2020, and Joe Biden's worst position in the polls back in 2020. Right now, Donald Trump leads in an aggregate of national polls by about 3 percentage points. If you go back 4 years ago at this point, Joe Biden was ahead by 9 points. This right now don't look anything like what we saw 4 years ago at this point. I then decided to take it a step further. What was Biden's worst 2020 polling position? He was ahead by 4 points, which basically matched what he ended up beating Donald Trump by in the national popular vote. So this 3-point advantage for Donald Trump is Donald Trump's best position versus Joe Biden, whether you include the polls this year or you include the polls last cycle. The idea that the polls underestimated Joe Biden last time around, simply put, does not hold any water, Mr. Berman.
Not in the general election, certainly. What about in terms of being...
Well, yeah, I mean, the other option is if you don't want to just switch to Kamala Harris, then you would just have a national convention, and the national convention has its own rules. If the issue is that, oh, we're going to challenge you in court, well, the Democratic convention can select anybody to be president. The delegates are just pledged to respective candidates.
Underestimated in the Trump era in general.
Yeah. So I decided to expand upon our search. Who outperformed their July national polls? This is major elections during the Trump era. We can start in the midterms, right? Take a look here. This is a 2022 midterm. Wow. This is a generic congressional ballot. In fact, Republicans were underestimated by a point. They outperformed their July polls and the actual result by a percentage point. You go back to 2018, Democrats...
Yeah, exactly, Paladin. I think a lot of donors would prefer if Harris was kept in, largely because she's related to, like, their fundraising apparatus already, but it wouldn't be set in stone necessarily.
Democrats did outperform their polls, but just by a point. Basically, the polls were right on at this particular point in the midterm elections. We talk about the presidential race. Last time around...
Again, I've looked into this a little bit, Shadamar. There does not appear to be any legal precedent or case that the Republicans can make about Harris or really anyone on the ballot for the DNC. Like, all that happens when the voting happens in the primary is, like, delegates get sent to the national convention. The delegates then choose the candidate. So, like, we're talking inter-party politics, not the state doesn't really get a say too much except in how the primary gets run, and that's only in some states.
Donald Trump actually did better in the results than his July polls by 5 points. You go back to 2016, you see something very similar. That is, the July polls actually underestimated Donald Trump. He outperformed his July polls. So the idea in the Trump era that the polls have underestimated Democrats, whether it be in a Joe Biden matchup, whether it be a matchup against Hillary Clinton, whether it be in the midterms, at least in the national polling,
not necessarily
right
nine-tailed
Donald
witch.
Trump in his strongest position, simply put, is not true. If anything, the polls have underestimated Republicans during the Trump era, especially in the presidential races in 2016 and in 2020.
Well, on that front, I mean, how unusual is it for a Republican to be ahead by this much right now?
Yeah. So let's go all the way back. Who led in early July polls? Well, right now, Donald Trump is ahead. Go back in 2020, a Democrat, Biden. 2016, Hillary Clinton, a Democrat. 2008, 2012, a Democrat. Even in 2004, where George W. Bush ended up winning, John Kerry was actually in the...
Yeah, I don't know how to tell you, Shadamar. I'm not concerned about that outcome.
ahead in the polls at this point. You have to go all the way back to 2000, to George W. Bush being ahead in the early July polls. You have to go all the way back to the end of the 20th century, beginning of the 21st century, to find a Republican ahead at this point. 24 years. At this particular point, the idea that a Democrat is ahead, there are voters in the electorate who are dealing with a poll position they have never seen before, and that is a Republican leading in the national popular vote, at least according to the polls.
A very unusual situation. One thing I just will point out, Biden may be talking about the primaries in 2020, where he did not do well in Iowa and New Hampshire, and then he ended up with the nomination. But that's a different animal. That is a vastly different animal than any kind of a general election setting.
Correct. In fact, if you were to look back at the 2020 national Democratic primary polls, they mostly had Biden ahead, except for that little small portion, right, when he lost Iowa and then lost to New Hampshire and then lost to Nevada. But overall, those primary polls had him ahead, and then he won. And certainly when it came to the general election, the polls always had Joe Biden ahead. There wasn't a single poll that met CNN standards for publication that ever had Donald Trump ahead in 2020. And now you have a slew of them, and the average, of course, definitely has Donald Trump ahead.
History ain't what he says it is on this front. Harriet, and thank you very much.
Thank you,
Appreciate it. Kate?
Yeah. Again, say what you will about individual polls or whatever, the unreliability thereof, but the aggregate of the polling isn't looking good for Joe Biden. It's not looking good. It's setting historical precedent. Hey, Legala DeVille. He needs people that will confront him. The issue is the issue is everyone in Washington is both attracted to and absolutely terrified of power. They all want power, but they are all absolutely terrified to run afoul of it. So they all choose the safest paths possible. Very few people actually want to say to Biden's face, hey, no, you're wrong. He wields an enormous amount of power over them. You know, make or break their career. I think tomorrow's Dem meeting is going to be decisive. Is there one happening tomorrow? I think I mean I predicted it by the end of today. I think my prediction on that one is incorrect. I don't think he's going to step down today, but the news keeps getting worse for him, and I think that he's going to step down soon. Maybe this week. Hakeem Jeffries is meeting with the congressional Dems. Yeah, I mean, him sending out the letter today is such a show of weakness. It doesn't surprise me that congressional Dems are scared shitless. They're relying on the president to pull them through swing states. Like they need a stronger candidate.